Okay, change of plans, because that never happens. We have been trying to do our compost over here with varying success, and so we've gotten some ideas, we've gotten some suggestions, and Andrea, quote, forgot that there's a provision within the food safety of the FDA and the EPA and all that stuff where you can put non-composted manure down into a garden area, but it's got to sit for a certain amount of time. And so if you have something, if you have a crop, that's what they call an above ground crop, like I'll just use a fruit tree as an example. That's an above ground crop. Or I guess like peppers or something like that, something that's not going to touch the ground or get close to the ground, then it has to sit for a minimum of 90 days before you can actually do anything with it. If it's an in-ground crop like garlic or potatoes or beets or carrots or something like that, then it's 120 days. And so it's June 1st right now, and we were wanting to start planting the garlic at the end of September, beginning of October. Well, the beginning of October is 120 days. So what we're going to do is we're going to prep this area here to be our garden bed for next year. And so the first step I'm going to do is I'm going to take the lawnmower in here and try to get as much of this chopped up as possible. Then we're going to take the vast majority of that manure over there, and we're going to spread it over here. We think right now we're going to leave the pile that's on the right over there. Let me zoom in a little bit. Yeah, the pile that's on the right there, because that has the hemp bedding in it. And then the pile that's on the left over there, that has that was the first one that we did. So we think we're going to keep those two and see if we can actually make compost out of those. And then all the rest of that stuff is going to come over here, and then we're going to spread it, and then I'm going to till it, and then we're going to leave it. So that's the game plan. And as you can see in the background, the potatoes are starting to die back. And unfortunately, we did not plant these potatoes at the same time. The ones on the far end were planted 2 weeks later than the ones closer. And so I'm wanting to wait until next weekend to actually harvest these. I want to try to harvest them with the undercutter, but that'll be next week's problem. But anyway, so that's the game plan of what we want to do. So let me go and let me mow all this down and see what it looks like. Okay, everything has been mowed in this area as much as I could get. It's still kind of iffy in here, so I was constantly getting the mower stuck and unstuck, so this was as good as I could do, but it does look a lot better. We have some green flags here, which represent a 40 by 80 foot area, which will represent up to 8 rows, which will be up to about 3,600 garlic. So for next year, that'll be about the maximum that we can do. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to get that many for next year, but I wanted to overplan than underplan. So now we're going to go in for a little bit, then I'm going to get on the tractor, and then I'm going to start moving all of that, bringing it over here, and then Andre gets the fun job of raking. So luckily the travel time's not too long with the tractor, because we don't have a dump trailer or we don't have a manure spreader, so I have to do it via the bucket. But that's infinitely better than trying to hand scoop all that and stick it in the yard cart. So there's at least that. So first step is done. Now we got to actually spread the manure. Oh, and one other thing. If you're going to spread manure like this, and if you have existing crops like this, the manure area that you're going to have needs to be at least 3 feet away from any crops that you either currently have or will have within that 120-day time frame. So if you see where this flag is and you see the potatoes right there, that's about 5 feet away, maybe 5.5 feet away. So we wanted to make sure we were well past the 3-foot mark. Plus those potatoes are coming up in about a week, so I'm not really too worried about it. And it's not really supposed to be raining in the next week. So we can start taking the potatoes up. That'll be the next big thing. Potatoes, and then starting to get the onions because they're starting to flop over. So anyway, this is I guess this is step 1. So step 2 is going to be actually placing the manure. Okay, that was a lot of work. So Andre and I managed to transfer the entire big pile, the pile next to it, and most of the pile next to it over to here, which if I had to hazard to guess, I would say it was between 12 to 14 cubic yards of manure. And so as you can see, here's the nice pile right here. And we didn't get all the way to the 40 feet. We got to about 35 feet. So this could encompass 7 rows. So Andre and I talked about it, and if we end up with more garlic than what this would provide, then we'll just either, hopefully that can finally get composted and we can use that, or we'll just have to get compost some other way. So all of this took about 3.5 hours to do. For my aunt, we did not do this in all one go. We did it in 3 different goes. And we also use sun protection because I know you're concerned about that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go grab the tractor and I'm going to till all of this stuff in. And I have no idea if it's actually going to rain or not, but the chance of rain jumped up from about 15% chance tonight to about almost 50% chance in the last about hour. So that's another reason why I want to get this tilled in tonight. So I'm going to go jump on the tractor and then get it tilled in. And just like that, 3.5, 4 hours of prep work gets tilled in about 10 minutes. So I like that the tilling in takes 10 minutes. I did not like the fact that the prep work took so long, but at some point we're going to get a manure spreader and then hopefully it can go a lot quicker. So here it is. And so now it's just going to sit and go fallow for 4 months. And then we will till it again right before we go to form the beds, which will be at the beginning of October. But it's funny that the dirt is like a completely different color now because the manure is all in there. Now this is aged manure. It was not fresh, because Andre was like, this was horrible, this was horrible. And I said, well, it could have been worse. I said, instead of scooping it with the tractor and bringing it over bucket by bucket, we could have hand shoveled it into the yard cart and then brought it over and dumped it. And she goes, no, that would have been the worst. And I said, no, the worst would have been if that was fresh manure. And she goes, yeah, that would have been the worst. So could have been a lot better, but it also could have been a lot worse. And so there's the yard cart there, since it potentially might rain. Now I'm going to put the yard cart under the carport tonight. And so That's all the vines and rocks and stuff we got out of there, because the place where we got the manure from, there were some rocks and stuff that were in there, so we had to get that out so it wouldn't damage the tiller. So anyway, stupid watermelon are vining out by the day, as per what watermelon does.
Go show the watermelon.
Go
show the 2 watermelon.
All right, hold on. Andre wanted me to show you the watermelon that are already growing, and it's just the beginning of June. A friend of ours took a lot of watermelon plants, and we still have a ton over here. And I would say we have at least a dozen watermelon plants. I know when we put the hay down the other day, I know I buried some watermelon plants, so they might pop back up, they might not. At this point, I really don't care. We're probably going to have to cull some of these watermelon plants, because these things last year, and they did not have any irrigation at all, just went absolutely gang crazy. And so we're really going to have to watch the watermelon this year, because otherwise we'll be coming out of our ears in watermelon. And so here's some of the corms that have come up so already. Our corms, we're going to leave where they are. We've had some come up and then die back. And so we're just going to leave them in the ground. We're going to leave this exactly the way it is, although we'll probably put some more hay or straw on top of it. And then we'll let it come back up this fall. And then we'll see what that does next year, to see what will happen with them for being 2 full years in the ground without us doing anything to them, except for maybe doing some mulch on top. That's the remainder of our... Were those damaged, or were those moldy ones?
Suspect of having some black spots.
Yeah, we had some black spots, which what I was calling the moldy ones. And so we put those separately, so we think that's what these are. So these are going to need to get harvested here pretty soon. And then that'll be the last of the regular garlic.
Star's gonna have to be...
Yeah, and so let me go over there real quick. Yeah, here's the Parisian star. So it's probably going to get harvested, it looks like, next weekend, because it's a lot more brown now than it was a couple of days ago. And then we have our collection of beets right here. I'm going to take a picture, send it to my former co-worker who has a chicken named after her, because she's like, I love beets. How many do you have? And I'm like, hundreds. So I'm going to send her a picture of the beets here pretty quick. So anyway, tilling is done. And so then now that's just going to sit and do nothing for a few months, which is perfectly fine with me. I actually like this solution a lot better than trying to compost all of it. So we're still going to try to compost what's left over here. And so we're still going to try to get some good green to go with it. And then if that fails, then we'll do a compost test and send it to Clemson, who can hopefully tell us what's wrong with the compost. But we're going to try to do some good green first, some fresh green. And so we'll see if we can... Oh, Andre found a corm. Shocker. I'm sure there's probably potentially hundreds of corms in the row. Like there's one right there. And so...
2 right here.
Anyway,
3 right here.
Yeah, so the corms we're going to try to sell this year. We're going to try to sell them either on Etsy or on eBay, one of the two. And then we're going to see how this goes. And if this actually works, then we might actually do something with the corms, with new corms next year. And if not, we'll just sell them. Because we can make a little bit of money just selling the corms themselves. And then once we get into the full-blown, which will be out in the field, then we could have room to do proper experimentation, because we're kind of cramped on space now. Because if we hit 6,000, which is what our intermediate goal is 6,000 cloves per year, then that's going to be 14 rows. And 14 rows is going to go from the end over there, and it's going to go well, 2 years will go all the way from the end over there to about halfway from where the garden ends now to where the compost is right now. And that would be for 2 years. So we would unfortunately only have a 2-year crop rotation, but we'll plant other things in there and not just have it go fallow. We'll put it like a cover crop or something in there. But anyway, I'm rambling about things we're going to be doing in the future. So anyway, this is done and I'm excited. And so now we don't have to compost 20 cubic yards of manure. We only have to compost, I would say, about 2.5 yards of manure.